is probably the most unhealthy lifestyle you can imagine. You're going to need a health moral compass. If you're in a hard charge like that, you're going to need to blow off steam. CrossFit's a great, healthy way to build an outlet. The other piece is you can't do all this stuff alone. You don't want to let this lifestyle kill you or make you super unhealthy. You need a tribe of people with you. You can find a CrossFit gym everywhere you go. CrossFit is just a ton of fun. It's the funnest part of my day. I do think it's one of those things that what you learn in the gym translates into life in a lot of different ways.
If there was one thing the world was asking for, it was for one more podcast about CrossFit. Well, here we are anyways. This is the Silverback Media Podcast, where we share the stories of the everyday CrossFitter so that more people are encouraged and empowered to try it themselves. Here's your host and everyday CrossFitter, Marco Mejia.
What is happening, Silverback Media crew? Welcome back to the Silverback Media Podcast, the podcast for you, the everyday CrossFitter, where we're on a mission to make the world a better place by getting more people doing CrossFit. My name is Marco Mejia. I'm a CrossFit Level 2 trainer in Phoenix, Arizona at CrossFit North Scottsdale. My guest on the show this week is Brad Schmidgall. Brad is a member at CrossFit North Scottsdale as well, and he has been doing CrossFit for a little over 10 years, but Brad is also the CEO of a large manufacturing company. And in this conversation, not only are you going to hear Brad's background and how he found CrossFit, you're going to hear Brad's view on how if you're looking to continue to make strides in your career, making sure that having that level of balance in your life to include and focus on your health and wellness is not only a bare minimum, but it's a requirement if you really want to make the progress that you want to make. And Brad is a shining example of that. Now, before we get to that conversation with Brad, regardless of whatever platform you're listening on, if you're watching me on YouTube, hello. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, also hello, I'm still waving at you. Make sure that you're following or that you're subscribed on whatever platform you're listening on. And better yet, because I asked you to, and I'm going to ask nicely. I'm going to say please this time. Please go do it on all three. Helps us out, helps it spread, makes the robots happy, okay? Make sure you're also following on Instagram at Silverback Media. And now that's 30 down, 10,000 to go, and let's go talk to Brad. All right, Brad Schmidgall, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Marco. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. No, this is ironically enough, I think you've listened to some episodes, and I overheard you in the gym just talking to some of the previous guests I've had on, because you guys have been members together at previous gyms and obviously now at North Scottsdale as well. So, and it was like, oh, Brad's a listener. All right, hell yeah, I want to talk to him too. So this is perfect timing to have you on. So I want to get started on your story, and where I like to start with everyone is just, hey, way back at the beginning, right? Growing up, activity wise, sports wise, like what was a young Brad getting into outside of just causing trouble around the neighborhood?
Well, I grew up in a little town in southeast Iowa, Mediapolis, Iowa, 10 miles from the Illinois border and 20 miles or 30 miles from the Missouri border. So,
Wow.
Yeah, a little farm town. And I played all the sports. As a town is we had about 1,600 people in town. And so in those kind of communities, basically all the kids play all the sports. So I grew up playing football and basketball and baseball and track and all that stuff. Basketball was my kind of first love. I was a tall kid always, and always liked basketball. So
Nice.
played that, up until early in high school. And I quit in high school because our basketball team was terrible and it was, wasn't really fun to be part of it. And I was liking football a lot more. So I kind of was focusing more of my energy on that. So wasn't terribly good. And that kind of leads into early on kind of how I got into the fitness world. I was a tall kid, but I was also a very, very skinny kid. And so, I think it was, seventh or eighth grade, the football team were starting to lift weights and I couldn't even bench the bar. I remember, which was the basic, like you can't bench the bar. It's utter humiliation. And so like I had to get
Especially
myself
in
to a
high school,
place.
you got all your friends looking at you and you're like, oh no, you walk around with your head down for a while after that.
100%. And we didn't have, like in CrossFit, we have women's bars and men's bars. Back in these days, there was only a 45-pound bar, unless you wanted to go grab the easy curl bar. But nobody could, look their friends in the eyes after having to bench with the easy curl bar. So, I was a really skinny kid. And so, and this was like called the early to mid 90s. You'd go to the grocery store or whatever, you'd have like the muscle magazines on I'm talking about the muscle and fitness and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the kids were
Men's
reading
health
it.
and
So
all the
Exactly.
superhero workouts, right?
Yeah, you know these guys are all just, juiced to the gills when they're telling, how they were getting big. But yeah, so, we started lifting weights, I think, seventh and eighth grade. Trying really hard, but when you were built like I was, you weren't making a lot of progress. Just for clarification, when I went into high school, I was 6'2", 135.
Oh
So,
wow. Yeah.
so
You
yeah, it's hard to
shrinking.
put on mass when you're built like that.
And I'm
So,
sure you were
but I
probably
love,
like, I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, you tell me, right? Like kids, especially that grow that they're that tall. I'm assuming you're probably pretty long, and it probably took you a while to just kind of like understand where your body was moving, even, right? You had to like grow into your limbs almost.
exactly. In fact, I think it was my football coach said that I could tread water in a garden hose. I was so skinny.
That feels like a perfectly Iowa phrase.
Yeah, exactly. It is a very Iowa phrase. So, yeah, so I started, I started doing like weightlifting sort of stuff, or I guess it's not weightlifting, it'd be, more like weight training stuff then. And as I got into high school, I kind of quit growing taller and was able to start putting a little more size on. And by the time I graduated, I was, closer to 210, 215,
Oh
which
wow. Okay.
was, so I grew into myself. But yeah, I was a football player.
Gotcha.
Uh,
Gotcha.
in the day.
Did you ever get into any I know it's like wrestling country, right? Too. Did you ever get into wrestling at all too in the off season, stay in shape for football and basketball?
I did not. Well, funny story about that. In Iowa, it is wrestling country, but you're kind of either in a wrestling family or you're not in a wrestling family. It's kind of the way it works. I mean,
Okay.
sometimes people will cross over, but the wrestling families, the kids have wrestling mats in their basement, growing up, and they're getting put into pee-wee wrestling at 3 and 4 years old. And by the time you get to call it, where there's like official school wrestling, seventh grade, you're pretty much established whether you're going to have a chance of being a superstar or not. So I
Gotcha.
never really
Gotcha.
got
Okay.
into it. Although I did make the mistake, 'cause I told you I got a little bigger when I was later in high school. We had like a kid who was third in the state or something at 119 pounds. And I was, of course, over 200 pounds. And I ran my mouth off and said, I don't care how good he is at wrestling, I can beat him. And so, even though I didn't know how to wrestle. So, a big group went into the wrestling room in our school. And I had the distinct privilege of having about 50 people watch me get pinned by a 119-pound kid. So, no, that was my wrestling experience was not glorious.
Probably gave you you're like that's the last time I want to be turned into a human pretzel. Like I
Yeah.
don't want to feel that anymore ever again.
No, this little guy was on top of me, and I don't know what was going on, but I just couldn't get him off. And it's no matter what I tried, I just couldn't. And then eventually, at the end of the day, and plays into the CrossFit world, I got really tired after about 45 seconds of trying to get this little squirt off me. And then once I got tired, I was finished.
You're like, oh no, something. That's a So I wrestled for 1 year. It was in middle school. I was in eighth grade, and the only other person in the weight class that I was in, I think it was like 125, would have been the weight class I was in. He was a two-time defending state champion. So they weren't bumping him out of a weight class for me, the eighth grader, right? So I got bumped up a weight class like 136 or whatever the next one was. But that also was my sparring partner in practice. So I'm the little pudgy eighth grader, and he's the 125 senior defending champion. So I joke that I learned how to get pinned really fast because I'm like I don't want to get like turned around every and try to fight this. I'm like if as soon as he gets his hands on me, I'm just gonna lay down.
That's hilarious. And if he's wrestling 125, it means he probably weighed 150. And
Yeah.
so, they bumped you up a weight class to wrestle a state champion. Yeah, that's no fun.
No, not at all. Not at all. I now like thinking back on it, I distinctly remember that was the first time I saw someone do like a legit rope climb. And it was, we had a long rope in the basketball gym at our school. And it was probably like, 30 feet in the air or whatever, like pretty standard high school auditorium or gym or whatever. And I remember seeing him do a full L sit legless rope climb all the way up and down.
Yeah.
And I was like, what in the world is that? And now, tie back to the CrossFit world, it's like that'd be a pretty fun thing to try to do next.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, looking back, those awesome wrestlers would be great
Oh yeah.
CrossFitters today. I mean,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
well, wrestling I mean, it's a wad,
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's an interval
2 minute
workout, kind
wad
of
with
like we
one
were
minute
talking about.
break.
Yeah. Yeah, the amount of suffering that they can go through as wrestlers, right? Just the physical component of it. They'd be like, I guess I never really thought about that in terms of like some of the high level CrossFitters now. I don't know if any of them have a wrestling background. I got to imagine some of them do.
Yeah,
It
you
feels like
have to
there'd be a
think so.
crossover.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the other thing the wrestlers would love to do is they would walk. They had those mats out there, right? So they'd walk on their hands and stuff like that. I remember going and seeing all that stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
those guys would have been savage CrossFitters.
I feel like there's a lot of baseball players that turn into good CrossFitters, which, is good for
Yeah,
me. I'll take that one.
yeah, you were a baseball
uh,
player, right? Yeah,
yeah. I played all the way through college. So once I heard that, I'm like, okay, all right, cool. Maybe this will be an all right thing for me. But okay, so that kind of got you through high school, right? So you
yeah.
got into weight training. You kind of filled out, grew into your body a little bit. So what did that look like? Did you play any sports in college? Did you play football after high school at all?
I did not. I didn't. I mean, I was decent, but the problem being, you're in a small school. I'm not sure I was talented enough anyway, but you don't get a lot of exposure in a small school in Iowa unless you kind of do the camp scene. So I had some interest from. There's a bunch of Division III schools in Iowa. I had a little bit of interest from some of them, but at the time, and this kind of plays into the rest of my life, we had a family business. We had a
Mm,
machinery manufacturing business, and that was very much what our life was kind of geared around. And so it was always very much understood that you kind of have your fun while you're in high school and you can do that kind of stuff. And then it's time to go to Iowa State University, get an engineering degree, get your butt back to, the company was called Hawkeye, get your butt back to Hawkeye and, start working, take life seriously now. And so, no, I went to Iowa State, studied mechanical engineering, and I essentially kind of quit any kind of fitness when I went there. I mean, I would occasionally, out of guilt or whatever, go to the rec center and lift a few weights or whatever, or play some basketball. But uh, no, my fitness career came to a screeching halt when I was about 18.
now, was that out of was that by choice? Was that kind of the demands of the education program and kind of knowing that it was going to be time to get back to work, maybe a combo of both?
Well, yeah, it's a very, I kind of had an interesting upbringing. We were a very kind of religiously conservative family too, and
Mhm.
and so it was also part of the ethic of kind of quit playing sports was that's kind of children's things,
Hmm.
and it's time to become like serious in life about your life and your faith and all that kind of stuff, and so you just don't mess around with children's games of sports, and I think they're probably. I don't think that group now probably has this ethic, but there was probably an ethic at the time too that any sort of, excessive focus on fitness would have been kind of maybe borderlining on pride or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but
Hmm.
we were German immigrants several generations ago. And so the group that we were kind of part of, and so it's just a very industrious, hardworking, sort of stern, culture. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's time to go to work. And my dad he didn't make me uh, go to college to become an engineer or anything like that. I had choice of what I wanted to do, but it was just very much understood in our family. That's what you did. And I had a lot of cousins and, I have an older brother, and they were all kind of marching down that same path. And the company was pretty successful and it was growing very fast. And so I saw my older brother and my older cousins coming back into the company, and they were, mechanical engineers and computer engineers and sales engineers, and they were getting these good jobs within the good jobs in the company, and they were kind of, building out their careers. And, I was just kind of hoping I could get there in time to still have something left for me. Uh, and
Were you the were
yeah,
you on
it
the
was
younger side of were you on the younger side of the cousins, the family tree?
kind of right in the middle. I had a few younger than me, several older than me. Um, And so I was probably worried about nothing looking back now, but it's just, that's very much what we did. But, I would say my dad did good for what he grew up with, because my grandfather started the business. My grandfather went to college or went to meet with the advisors with my dad and his two brothers. And he picked their degree and he picked all their classes. They didn't
Oh,
even have a
wow.
choice in it. They didn't even, I don't think they even met with the advisor. My grandpa met with the advisor and just laid out their entire career for them because he knew what he needed.
Oh
He
my
needed a
God.
sales guy, he needed an industrial engineer, and he needed a mechanical engineer to make his company work. And so that's what they were. So I don't even know if those guys, any of them wanted to do any of that stuff.
Oh
Uh,
man.
so that was we were just it was very much a patriarchal. My grandfather was the patriarch driven, thing, and they just that was very much embedded in our DNA is that was what we did. So
Man. So and I mean, I'm gonna kind of ask this question, it'll skip ahead in your story and then we can kind of come back around. It's at some point then that thought of, you know, fitness being a part of your life and things like that, obviously that changed for you, right? Considering what you've been doing,
yeah,
doing CrossFit now for a long stretch of time. What did it take, or what did it take when you were like, okay, wait a second, something about that, maybe that mindset that was that was within the family growing up, that you started to take a different approach and be like, okay, fitness
yeah.
is an important part of life, um, within reason, right? Anything taken to an extreme is rough, right? Like, what was it, how did that go untangling that thought
Well, I
as you
think
grew up?
it's yeah to fully understand that. So like I said, I grew up in this kind of very fundamentalist religious tradition, and I'm still a Christian today. But when my wife and I were about 22 years old or so, we kind of made a choice that that's not exactly the environment we wanted to raise our children in, and so we left that tradition, that church, and just went to a kind of a normal kind of evangelical Christian sort of church tradition from there. And so in some ways, you no longer kind of had these, uh, rules all of a sudden that were being like pressed upon your life where you weren't, we were literally not allowed to play sports. We were not allowed to go to sporting events once you got to a certain age. You were not allowed to do
Oh
this
wow.
stuff. So once you kind of had all that stuff off you, you had a lot more freedom to kind of, explore that area of your life. So that was like we were 22 or 23. But of course, you're still super hardwired to how you grew up those first whatever years of your life. If I would fast forward to when I kind of really took fitness serious again, it would have been well. So our family sold our business when I was in 2007 when I was 27 years old. And so being 27 years old, you still got to figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life. It's not like you can just coast off into the sunset. And so we stayed with it. And then they sent Megan and I over to Denmark. We bought a company in Denmark. They sent us over there in 2008 with our 2-year-old son. And then my daughter Annika was born when we were over there. And so, but while we were over there, while Megan's my wife, while Megan was, that's for the rest of the listeners. Sorry.
Thanks for filling me in. Yeah.
I think you knew Megan was my wife. Anyway, yeah, when Megan was pregnant with our daughter, she got rheumatoid arthritis, or she developed rheumatoid arthritis as an autoimmune, kind of affliction, and very much went on a journey, a health journey of diet and exercise to see if she could heal her body kind of naturally of this
Mm.
deal. And so she's cooking very healthy, she's exercising, and I just kind of got caught up, somewhat got caught up in the wake of all that. So it started like, obviously she's making her food at home, so I'm, eating healthier, and then I do some exercise with her. We came back to the US in 2010, and I was kind of like mildly committed trying to do a little exercise. I'd lost a little weight. I had gotten up to like 250 pounds on my heaviest. So um, and it was not quality. It wasn't quality weight.
It
So
wasn't the weight training
yeah,
growing into your body like
yeah,
in high school, right? It
I'd love to get to 250 again, but not like that. Anyway, it was kind of funny. So I'm out there. One day I decided to go run around the neighborhood. We had like this little like recreational complex next to our house, our neighborhood. So I don't know what got into me one day. I decided to go jog around it, probably a nice solid 14-minute mile clip. And some guy saw me in the neighborhood, a guy I knew. He's like, "Hey, you like to run?" And I was like, I said, "Sometimes." And he's like, "Why don't you come and join we're doing this boot camp at the gym in the hospital. There's a big hospital nearby." He's like, "Why don't you come do boot camp with us?" And I was like, didn't really want to, but kind of wanted also kind of, I don't know, wanted to be part of the group or whatever. So I went and joined. This is like 2011, and started doing these boot camps every morning of, kind of CrossFit-y sort of stuff where you're just, you know, uh, going through a bunch of circuits and running up and down the hallways and, lifting light
Hit
weights.
training, circuit style.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I don't think it made me really any stronger at all, but I lost a lot of weight doing that stuff. And so I did that for a couple of years, and then I kind of got interestingly exposed. I started getting exposed to CrossFit, and then kind of once that happened, which is kind of a story in and of itself, I very much said that's what I want to do.
So
So
I want to get there, but I want to rewind a little bit. So there was that
yeah,
you said that um so you and Megan at like 22 was when you decided, okay, like in terms of, religious beliefs, things like that, we're going to explore and venture out and kind of take a different approach. And then, but the kind of initial health kick wasn't until you guys were about 27. So there's a 27-ish, right? I think you said, right? So there's that 5-year stretch in there where I'm assuming I'm guessing there's not a lot of fitness happening in there, maybe not a lot of health focus in there. Was that like, hey, full on career focus? You had just graduated, young family, right? Like let's build this thing up. Like what did that look like for you in that stretch of time?
yeah. Well, that's a great point. Those years were a big blur because what was happening during those years is, our just to back up a little bit on our business and kind of what we did, we built machinery for making concrete products. So machinery for making concrete pipes or culverts or any kind of manhole structure that you bury in the ground and takes, either stormwater away or sanitary waste away. So, but kind of more simplistic machines was kind of what we did. And so now we're back, you're getting this trend towards a lot more automation, a lot more technology is kind of coming into the world this is the early 2000s. And I graduated college in 2001. So anyway, we decided that we wanted to amp up our game big time in the business. Now we had all these young guys who had just graduated college, like in my generation from the family. And we decided we wanted to start building and introducing fully automated production systems to
Nice.
to the market. And it just perfectly coincided with what the market needed at that time, with you couldn't find labor, and they were building or ramping up our infrastructure kind of ahead of that whole like 2008 bust. There was all this construction going on. And so our business just grew like crazy. It grew, I would say top line, it probably grew 400% in 4 years. And
Whoa.
this is not like some brand new startup. This has been around since the 1950s. And bottom line, it probably grew 10 times in those 4 years. And it was just crazy. It was insane risk taking. We were taking huge risks building these facilities. We were selling them like crazy. We were ramping up our company left and right, hiring people. When we couldn't hire enough welders, we actually hired a welding instructor and we're bringing beating hearts off the street in and teaching them how to weld. We were doing all sorts of crazy stuff, trying to, together with the rest of our team during that time. And so it was just all hands on deck. And as you can imagine, when you're growing like that, half the stuff doesn't work right. And so you're layering all this growth with chaos and things not working. And I mean, it was, it was honestly the best business education you could have given anybody. I wish everybody when they were 22 or 23 years old through, call it 27, 28, could grow up in that environment because you learned everything. I mean, you
Oh
literally
yeah.
learned. I grew in my career so fast during that time period, but the issue being there was just no time for anything. I mean, we were working around essentially it felt like around the clock for years, and then I think that's why. And so business grew like crazy. And then my dad and his two brothers, who were the primary owners, were like, "Hey, let's just sell this thing." It was a really good time to
Right,
sell it in
let's ride. Yeah,
2007.
let's get out
Business is
now.
going
This
through
thing's
the
blowing
roof.
up. It's going.
It is, and they were fried. I mean, here's the thing: we're in our 20s. We've got energy. We can carry the world on our shoulders. At least we thought we could. These guys were getting closer to the end of their careers, and they were fried. Like
Yeah.
I tell you, my dad still hasn't psychologically recovered from those years, and I'm not joking when I say that. I think it it smoked him.
Oh
So they
my
decided,
goodness.
so, yeah. So that's what was going on in that time frame.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And then, well, and then, so you mentioned that the kind of the kickstart for you guys to get back and kind of refocus on health was Megan's diagnosis. I
Yeah.
mean, do you feel like if it, let me try to word this right, if it wasn't for something like that happening, what do you think? I mean, was fitness or health even something you had thought about, or was that the kind of thing that propelled you guys back into a focus in that time frame?
I think that was the catalyst, but I love doing this stuff so much right now. I think I would have found it. I think like this is what I was meant to, I mean, I shouldn't say I was meant to do, but this is what I needed. Like this is exactly what I like to do. So I really do believe that CrossFit out there in the kind of universe and I would have found each other one way or another. But good question, Marco. I've never really thought about that. That's, you know, that's a really good question. But I think I would have found it anyway.
Yeah, I kind of feel that same way too, right? It was almost like this, uh, you know, you're meant to find it, and in a weird way, probably found you, or you found it, however you want to word it, at the time that it was that you needed it most, or that it was most applicable to you, right? Like I'm
Yeah,
sure you probably could have come across it earlier, but if you had found CrossFit or come across it in that stretch of time where everything's blowing up business wise, you're like, oh,
yeah,
that looks cool, but where am I going to fit this? Right? Like it might have just not have been at
yeah,
the right time to even do something about it.
exactly. And I think I really went out of balance during those years.
Mm.
Like, and that's something that maybe we can talk about a little bit later too, is like, I think it's incredibly important that a person has balance in their life.
Mm.
Like you don't run off the rails, one way or the other. There's the road's pretty wide, but there's big ditches on both sides of the highway, right? And so you
Mm.
don't, I think it's people really run the risk of running off the road into ditches if they don't find balance in their life. So, yeah, I think I really, really, really needed to find something kind of an outlet from working that way. Otherwise, because I grew
Makes
up, I
sense.
mean, I love my dad, I love my grandpa, these guys like crazy, but I mean, work was everything. And I think
Mm.
that it's just inherent in that kind of German fundamentalist, separatist culture we grew up in was we outworked everybody, always. And now that you know that about me, now you know me. Now you know why sometimes I do
I
the things
I
I do.
I felt a couple light switches clicking on. I'm like, I get it now. I see you in the gym, and now it makes a lot of sense.
You just can't take some stuff out of you.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so let's kind of I guess fast forward. So then you said okay, so you're doing the kind of boot camp style training, right? You found a group,
Yeah,
and then in that somewhere is where you get your first exposure to CrossFit. I think we might have been
yeah.
talking about this recently after a class. So what was that first time you heard about CrossFit or I think was it like a game? It was a games related thing that you saw, right?
Hey, quick interruption from me. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. If you are, I have a favor to ask of you. The main way that this thing can continue to spread is through word of mouth. So if you're enjoying this episode, send it to someone or share it with someone that may benefit from it or enjoy it as well. Leave a comment, drop a 5-star review, follow the show, share about it on social media. That's the main way that we can help get this message out to others so we can continue to spread this, okay? I'd really appreciate it if you do that. And now let's get back to the show.
Well, I think that kind of came a little bit later because I
It
did
did. Okay.
start seeing this stuff like on YouTube. But so interestingly enough, so I was doing this boot camp and I really liked it. And so one of my cousins I worked with, Jeff, who was a very, very good friend of mine, I invited him to come do the boot camp as well. So he started doing like this boot camp in the morning with me, and he was our head of sales, our head of North American sales for the company. And he was loving it. In fact, he loved it so much that a year or 6 months to a year after he started doing it, he quit his job, which then I took. I became the head of sales. He quit his job and wanted to become a fitness trainer. And so he liked it so much, he started doing that. So he went and walked away from the corporate world and went into the kind of fitness industry. And so he started training boot camp. And I don't know exactly how he how he got plugged into CrossFit. I think somewhere along the line as he was studying or you kind of get into that world, and this is like 2011, 2012, keep in mind, right? So you're talking about right when CrossFit was starting to really blow up. So he got exposed to it somehow. And so we were doing kind of like boot camps with him. So and this is really, this was a disaster, by the way, but there was a local kind of like Globo gym called Sportsworks that he would hold his boot camps at. And so there was kind of like all these guys are like in their, it's a typical like meathead, musclehead guys are just like pumping iron. They don't clean this place. It's one of those places, and we're running boot camps in it, but there's no space for a boot camp. So he's running a boot camp at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we're running around the aisles between guys, squatting, lifting all these heavy weights, doing setting up boxes for box jumps right where people are working out. I mean, it was this chaotic thing where we were doing these boot camps right in the middle of a Globo gym. And then he
Surprised that
started
was even allowed.
I know. I
I'm
can't
surprised they
believe
even
it
allowed
either.
that to happen.
I can't believe, I look back now and I can't believe, it doesn't surprise me that the owner, because I'm sure he paid the owner or something the owner was making some money from doing this. So I get why he did it, but I can't believe these guys who are lifting weights every morning weren't complaining more. Because once we got into kind of doing like CrossFit, I literally remember standing 2 foot away from a guy benching while I'm snatching. And I'm literally standing like if I would have dumped that barbell back, I would have dumped it on his chest. I mean, and this is it's not just one, it's not just me in there. There's 8, 10 people doing this right in the aisles. And yeah, this just tells you how nice people from Iowa are, because I don't ever remember once being chastised, yelled at, complained about, even while we're doing all this stuff. So
It's that Midwestern courtessy, right? It's like, oh no, it's okay, it's okay,
it
it's
must
all good.
be.
You drop a bar on someone's neck. Oh no, it's all good. It's okay, it's all right, all right.
Yeah. So yeah, we were doing it in there, but I'd actually heard about CrossFit once before because one of my really good friends at work and my brother were big into kind of bodybuilding stuff. And they were talking, they were like, hey, you see what those guys were doing at the gym yesterday? And I was asking them about it, and they were like, yeah, it's just crazy thing. And these were like SWAT team members from like the local police force, or like the most intense guys in town, they were doing this thing they said called CrossFit. And I'm like, oh, that CrossFit, what's that? I said, but I'm thinking like cross training. Because, growing up in the 80s and stuff, like there's this concept of cross training, which is, I don't even know, like this mixture of kind of weightlifting and whatever, right? So I assume they were just kind of doing circuits or cross training. And they're like, no, it's this thing where you just go until you basically die. It's like you go until you can't go anymore. I'm like, what? It's like failure? And it's like, yeah, but everything's the failure. And you have this short time period that you just go as hard as you can until you just can't go anymore. And they're talking about this guy at the gym who was like basically doing pull-ups for, pull-ups, and then he'd go until he couldn't move his arms anymore, and then he'd be like laying on. They're just describing this carnage of these guys doing CrossFit, and these are the toughest guys in town. And I'm like, man, that sounds awesome. That kind of reminds me of the guys at wrestling practice back in the day, just
That
this
makes
savage workouts. And so it just really piqued my interest because, I have definitely a bent for like extremism. It's like, hey, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing as hard as you freaking can. Right. So, yeah, so it really sounded cool and interesting. And then, at that same time, you started seeing the stuff popping up on the social media and the YouTube and Rich Froning. And, I mean, to me, this was just, and you see the pictures of these guys, it was the icon of exactly what I wanted to be, these, crazy fit people, not carrying any body fat, tons of muscle mass, just doing incredibly hard things and challenging themselves. And I don't know, like when I started hearing about that, and then I started kind of like dabbling in it, it's like, man, this is fun. Like
yeah.
this is not working out. This is fun, and this is blowing off steam in the absolute best way possible.
It sounds a little bit like it almost took you back mentally to like seeing the magazine covers in high school, right? And you were like, oh, like if I do that, I could probably look like this. Hell yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now I realized later that CrossFit, I mean, I love CrossFit. It's actually not the most effective thing in the world at making you look like that, In fact, I have a brother who's a bodybuilder who's really, really big, and he he chastises me all the time for doing CrossFit because he's like, why are you wasting your time? Like, why don't you do something that's actually going to get you big? So, it's like, I don't know, it's so fun.
Yeah, and that the variety that, and I mean, man, that way that it was explained to you is like the perfect description of like early 2010s CrossFit. It's like
Yeah.
you just start working out and you go until you die. It's like, yeah, I'm like, I think we've got to. There are definitely still some workouts like that for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not.
Well,
I feel like
what's
around
really
that time it
funny
was like,
is, so when we were doing these CrossFit workouts in this Globo gym, we would only do hero workouts. That was the only
whoa,
thing. There was nothing else. Yeah. So every workout that we did was a hero workout, and he'd do the whole thing where he'd like describe it and he'd tell the story of the guy, who it was about.
oh,
And then he just set us loose in the gym, running around. And the funny thing is, there's like multiple levels. There's like this track up top, where like people like run. So like half our stuff would be up there on the track, half our stuff would be down amongst the bodybuilders, and you just be running around this place, oh, I got to do the box jumps now. You hustle up the stairs and do some box jumps, and it's like, oh, now it's time to go do double unders. You go run down the stairs, and you're whipping the jump rope around by people. I mean, it was, and we went hard. I mean, that was the
yeah.
ethic. We were taught it. It's like you if you're walking after this thing, you didn't do it right, and that was how it was introduced to me.
Oh my God. Do you remember what your first workout was? Like in a
I
CrossFit affiliate?
I don't, man. Oh, an affiliate. My first experience in affiliate ever was when we moved to Arizona. This was all back in Iowa. We didn't move to Arizona until 2014. And so I started kind of doing, like I said, I started kind of doing the boot camp thing, I think in like 2010, 11-ish. And then I actually kind of got into a period of just being part of like a running club.
Oh,
When I
nice.
came, and then I got started doing kind of back into this boot camp sort of stuff with my cousin Jeff. That was kind of morphing into CrossFit. And then we moved in 2014 to Arizona, and we were looking for homes. I remember driving through Old Town Scottsdale, and there it was, the corner of Indian Bend and Goldwater. Like there was like it was almost like it was illuminated by the heavens. Cactus CrossFit, this nice brick building, and I'm like, that's where I'm going to go. And so literally the first day we moved to Arizona, I went there to the gym, and I don't remember this. You're gonna love this. I don't remember what the first workout was, but before they let me work out, they had me do an on ramp or whatever they call it. Like one of the coaches ran me through, like started teaching me the basics of how do you power clean and how do you snatch and blah blah blah, which I kind of knew how to do that stuff. But what was so funny about those days, Marco, part of the on ramp was teaching me the false grip on rings for ring muscle ups, teaching me ring muscle up progressions, wanting to see where I
Oh,
was with the ring muscle ups. This is what it was like back then. It's like,
oh my goodness.
yeah, not everybody has ring muscle ups, but you're gonna freaking get them pretty soon. So let's get after this.
Yeah, I wonder
So
because they do a full ring muscle like strict ring muscle up progression at the level one. And so I wonder if that was probably adopted from that at that time. I mean, I did my level one in 2022. So I mean, who knows
okay.
if it was all kind of following the same progressions, what in 2014. So maybe it was just kind of adopted from that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, that's what we do with the level one. So we're gonna run through that with our onboarding too. And so
Yeah.
I'm sure that for you, was that your first experience? I guess with you had done the CrossFit style workouts as a part of the boot camp.
Yeah.
That was that kind of your first one-on-one
Yeah.
CrossFit coaching, like coach to athlete experience?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Like we weren't, like I said, I realized we were doing CrossFit workouts, but it was nothing like what real CrossFit was. We didn't even have bumper plates. I mean, the gym had like a couple bumper plates, but they were all like on the deadlift racks, which the meatheads were using. Um, so we were like, you couldn't drop barbells. You couldn't, of course, there was guys benching nearby, so you couldn't do that. That's part of the reason you didn't drop them. But no, but once I got into the affiliate, I really started getting things dialed in. I don't, I really got my form dialed in on everything. And I think part of the reason why they were running me through that stuff is I was pretty adept at a lot of those movements, back then. So it's kind of interesting. It was on Wodify. I downloaded from Wodify when I left that gym or when that gym closed, like as an Excel CSV file, all of my workouts and all of my times and everything. So I have a record from the moment I started in 2014 of all the workouts we did. And so I'll occasionally go back and redo if I'm working out at home and I'm looking for something to do. I'll go back to early 2014 and just kind of benchmark myself against where I was when I kind of first started. And I wasn't that bad back then. So I think part of the reason they were trying to teach me that ring muscle up was because I told them I couldn't do one, and they could see that I
Hmm.
probably wasn't too far away from kind of getting that.
Yeah, and things like that too. I mean, high skill gymnastics movement like that, if you can help someone get over the hump on something like that, I mean, physically, that's one thing, right? Like having the ability to do a ring muscle up versus not, and then the things that allows you to do physically from there is one thing. But at least for me, the mental component, especially of like a ring muscle up, bar muscle up, handstand push up type of thing, the mental aspect as an athlete of thinking like, whoa, I never thought I'd be able to do something like that. I don't know if that was something that you maybe had in mind, but I know for me it definitely
Yeah.
was. And then realizing that you were capable of it and walking through it, and then you're like, oh my god, it's almost like this unlock of like, well, what else am I capable of that I kind of put a limiter on myself for, you know?
Yeah, I totally remember that because, we're fast forwarding a couple years now, but now it's like I think it's 2016 in the open. There was a CrossFit, there was a open workout that was 75-pound power snatches and like 10 power snatches, 3 bar muscle ups. I think you just went back and forth. Do you remember that one?
The only reason I didn't do that one, I hadn't gotten into CrossFit consistently yet at that point, but I think that was the only reason I remember that one. This is goodness gracious, I'm gonna show my nerddom here. I think Dave Castro did that open announcement. Was that the one where he was wearing a suit doing bar muscle ups during the open
Oh,
announcement?
wow. I don't remember. I apparently didn't watch that open announcement. I must have missed it, but that's hilarious.
There was
Huh.
one where he did something like that. It was some high skill gymnastics move, and he was wearing a full suit, and people were like, "Whoa!" Like he did that full, no warm up, full movement, all good to go. So okay, so that was it. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that
but
open
I
workout
had
was
never done
awesome.
a bar muscle up before, and I was kind of sad because I was trying to get a good score in the open. It was my third year doing the open and
Mhm.
reasonably good score. I was like, man, I've never done a bar muscle up before, and honestly, I never tried one, but I just assumed I couldn't do one, and so I was just talking to the coach about scaling it or whatever, and he's like, why don't you just go try? Let me see where you're at. Let me try one. So he kind of explained it to me. So I went up the bar, and the very first time I tried one, I got one. And so I was like, that's pretty cool. And I was like, that really was like unlock something in my mind that I was like, yeah, I think maybe I'm selling myself short in a lot of areas here. So
Yeah. So okay, so around this time you're moved across the country, right? You've got a few years of like, kind of this health focus and everything like that. Obviously, career wise, things are still progressing forward, right? You've got a young family. What was it about CrossFit, just in terms of kind of big picture lifestyle wise, that made it such a good fit for you at that point in your life, right? With everything you had going on.
yeah, well, great question. I mean, let's one of the most fundamental things is from the very beginning with this when I started doing the boot camps to I started doing kind of the quasi CrossFit and then until I came to Arizona and started doing it, Megan always did it with me. So
Mm.
it was really something we did together. And so, one of the things we talk about balance, and I think back to kind of when my life was really out of balance from a work standpoint, and it's been I've struggled back and forth throughout my life of my life getting out of balance in that area. But one thing I've always prioritized is time with her, and dedicated, devoted time with her, not just, so high quality time with her. And so we really enjoyed doing that stuff together. So part of it was just something we did together. It was kind of our thing. That was a bit of it. I also, really kind of started taking my health seriously, and I bought into the CrossFit ideology around, wellness, that it's kind of the pinnacle of wellness. I've heard someone once say, uh, nobody who can do a, sub 4 minute Fran is going to die of anything other than getting hit by a car. you know, like CrossFit's an excellent proxy for wellness. So I was like, well, okay, if I'm going to really kind of want to be healthy and well and everything well into my older years, this seems like a great thing for me to keep working on and getting better at. And so I think it very much kind of was as far as where my philosophy, my belief system is around health and wellness, it's right in the middle of it. It was something I could do with Megan. I mentioned that I struggle with, maybe workaholism or being too focused on that. I need a place to blow off steam. I think I build up a lot of steam, when I'm working. I'm bringing a lot of intensity to that. And so I need an outlet, a healthy outlet to really blow off steam. And during a lot of the really hard years of work I've had or the hard days, I've always told people there is 1 hour of my day where I'm not thinking about any of my problems at work or any of that stuff. You cannot, when all you can think about is trying to get another breath and another rep and stay in vertical, that you're not thinking about anything else. So I think that's very therapeutic to kind of have this outlet on that front. Yeah, and I think I don't want to get old, Marco. I know I'm getting old, but at the end of the day, I look at what does it mean to age? And people that are old, if you look at them, fundamentally, they're losing muscle, they lose their muscle mass, and they lose their mobility and flexibility and the ability to kind of, move well, and they lose the ability to move explosively. I love my dad. He's actually in pretty good shape, for a guy who's 73 years old. But if you asked him to explode out of his chair and sprint down the hall, it wouldn't happen. That's reflective and impacting what you can do in your life and how you can live your life and the kind of things you can do. So I look at CrossFit, as this wonderful kind of anti-aging approach I'm taking to, stay mobile, stay flexible, and keep my, bone density and muscle mass. It's not the highest, it's not the activity it's going to make the most for that, but it's going to be something that keeps that. I think it's in a good spot. So,
and like it's 1 hour, right? Like it's something that it's inherently time bound because of the class structure, right? Which I think is a very helpful thing for a lot of people, and I'm sure for you too, considering, right? It's not like you started taking steps back in your career, like you continued moving that forward. So to know, like, okay, this is 1 hour that I'm going to dedicate to this, and I can get back to what I need to do outside of the gym. Like that was probably super helpful, knowing like, all right, I don't need to be in the gym for 2, 3, 4 hours a day to maintain or continue to make progress physically too.
Yeah, 100%. And then there's a community aspect of it. Like I said, I don't work in Arizona. For years, my offices were in Iowa or St. Louis. And, starting 2 years ago, I took a new job, and now my offices are in Wisconsin. And so I travel frequently, back and forth almost every week. But so I don't have a place where I can hang out with people at work every day. So to me, when I'm home, to have that hour a day where I can go in and I can see my buddies and we can joke and have camaraderie. And then, then there are people also that are my friends outside of work, and we do stuff together. And so I think that is really great. And I think it's, there's this kind of like-mindedness within that community, or probably any kind of community you find, of people that value the same things as you. So they value health and taking care of themselves and not being stupid in their life. And unless we're in the gym, then we'd be really stupid. But it's kind of a common value system. And so I never worry if I'm hanging out with my CrossFit friends that I'm going to get in some situation that I wish I wasn't in. Right? It's just so that community aspect is really strong. And everyone talks about that with CrossFit, but I can't. For anyone out there who's looking for a tribe of people to make them better, I don't know, outside of finding a really good church, which I would put a plug in for, go to Scottsdale Bible Church. I love it. It's awesome. But outside of that, that's not something that's interesting to you. I can't find a better place for people that are going to make you better than a CrossFit gym. And in particular, I really love North Scottsdale. I think it's a great spot.
I mean, you even, you kind of mentioned it. You said something earlier. You said that it became a good outlet, and then you threw in there, you're like, a healthy outlet, right? Because it's like there's any number of unhealthy outlets that you could have to blow off steam from work or career or family or whatever the thing is that you need the outlet from. So yeah, that was a great little add-in plug that you said in there. You're like, this is a healthy one. It's like you're gonna get healthier, you're gonna get fitter, and you're gonna be able to, like you said, you just kind of jump off the cycle of like, what's the next thing on my to-do list, right? Like, what's the, oh crap, I got to make this phone call. Oh, darn it, I got to go run this errand, right? It's like, you're not thinking about that in
Yep.
the middle of a workout. You can't. And if you can, you might need to go a little faster, but that's a different story.
I have a list of people I'm going to talk to that I need to talk to about that, but it's not my place. Well, the business world, it's full of unhealthy people. I mean, I honestly I can't think, especially kind of, the world I'm in of there's a lot of travel involved. You know, the stress can be astronomical. You're sitting on planes, you're sitting at desks, you're having dinners at night with, garbage food oftentimes, or a lot of alcohol. I mean, you look at the people, you look at a lot of business leaders, they are in horrific physical condition. And so I think, to me, and I'm one of the things that I try to, this whole thing of balance, I really want to model for my children and for those people around me and those within my company, basically anyone in my span of care. I want to model for them that you can have excellence at business. You can be an excellent husband and a father, mother, whatever. And you can have top tier physical condition all at the same time. It doesn't have to be an either or. So many times it's an either or for people. And then, they're either one of those things and they're terrible at the others, or I really have kind of set out in my life to try to show that, not just show, I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. I'm just I really do believe, that is the way to live. And, it's kind of funny in the CrossFit Open. And I say this with all humility because I'm decent at CrossFit. I'm not that great at CrossFit. I mean, I have major holes in my game. But one of the things that you used to do in the Open is you could put your career, you put your career in there, and then you could make a filter on the Open scoreboard as to where you were kind of amongst those who had your same title or your same career. And so I became a CEO in 2017. And at that time, so I wanted to prove to be the fittest CEO in the world, and fittest defined by who in the CrossFit Open. Of course, there's way fitter. You got CEOs who are triathletes that could, or ultra runners that could, run me under the ground. But as far as
can they snatch 225? I don't think so.
No, can they? So you're right. What's their vertical leap? 4 inches, right? So as far as what I think real fitness is, I think CrossFit defines it better than anybody. And I wanted to prove I was the fittest CEO in the world. And that really was my driving target year after year in the Open. And I would always end up like 7th or 8th on the list. And
wow.
But I don't know how many people were putting their thing in there. So I'm not claiming by any stretch of the imagination that I was the 7th or 8th fittest CEO in the world. But according to the CrossFit Open leaderboard, I was. And then I started looking at these guys who were ahead of me. And I'm like, man, this guy's like 23. How's he a CEO? And so I started like doing a little, internet sleuthing on them. And most of these guys, like they had just started their own company and just named themselves the CEO. They were like they had like a digital search. They'd help you build a website or something like that, right? So nothing wrong with that, but it's like that's not the exact kind of guy I was trying to compete against. And so I knew who all these guys were year after year. But there was actually one real CEO that would just destroy me. And I kind of gave up on my goal. His name is CJ. I don't remember his last name. But he actually ran a bigger company than mine. And yeah, there was no way I was ever going to touch this guy. I mean, he was like regional caliber,
wow.
He would probably be like an our gym lawn. He would have probably been wired. He would have probably been in that kind of caliber in the age group stuff. So anyway, so I'll say, wow. I think I was, as far as like the category that I was trying to compete against, I think I got to number 2.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
but,
I mean, look, number 2 CEO amongst like, I guess I don't want to put the term of like real CEO in there. We can do that in air quotes, like you said.
Yeah, because a lot of guys would look at me and say like, yeah, no, you're not a real CEO. Go talk to the CEO of Caterpillar and tell him that you're in the same category as him. So,
on that kind of topic of, because and I'm sure you've probably seen this too, just with as many years being in CrossFit, right? There'll definitely be some people that get into CrossFit, love it, kind of like we do, and essentially shift the unbalancedness, if that's a word, from whatever it was before, then to CrossFit. And then it's like, instead of it being the, hey, 1 hour a day and be consistent, it's like, no, I'm going to do, the 1 hour a day plus all this extra work that then becomes this unbalance in
Yeah.
that direction. Did you ever feel that? Did you ever have like, did that ever, was that ever something that came up for you? Maybe stretches of time, spurts of time?
Well, let's put it this way. I think I definitely could have. I had like fantasies in my mind of being one of those guys because we all know we're all in the gym, right? We're doing our 1 hour a day, and then you see the guy over there, who was there when you came in. You knew he was there for 2 hours before you came in, and he's working way harder than you while he's in there. And then when you leave, he's still working, and you know he's going to be there for a couple more hours. And you see the things that he's able to do and the progress that they're making. Yeah, I kind of like idealized in my mind at times. Like, that's what I want to do. And every time, like I would
Awesome.
talk to Megan about that, she would just be like, "Smack." She'd be like, "Nope, get your head back, screwed on straight. There's no money to be made in CrossFit. You're a husband and you're a father, and no." Those guys are like, and the reality is, yeah, I don't think I ever seriously was tempted by that. I think part of the reason is it's hard enough for me to carve out an hour a day to
Yeah.
actually do my work. The idea of carving out like double or triple that is unrealistic. And honestly, I've seen a lot of people go into improper balance in CrossFit over the years. They never sustain. I look back to I go back to Cactus CrossFit in 2014. The group of guys that there was like a comp team there, and they were the ones that were like training half the day long. Because it was back in the day when, man, making regionals. If you're in your mid 20s and you're in Scottsdale, Arizona, and you make regionals, the world is your footstool. There's not a girl in town that wouldn't date you. You're like, you get to the front of all the lines. I mean, that was, and so there was, a huge crowd of people in kind of that world when we came to Cactus. And, I didn't know a lot of them personally, but I would venture a guess today, not a single one of them is still doing CrossFit. So,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty certain they probably are. So,
And that's super unfortunate too, right? Because those are the people, and you see this with, some games athletes after they retire and they're like, well, I'm broken because of CrossFit. It's like,
yeah,
well, I mean, you were the amount of volume that you were pushing yourself to do, like that's not what's recommended from a CrossFit perspective for the everyday person, right? Like that, yes, that's what you was required of you to compete at the level that you did, for sure. Not saying that, and what you were able to do was amazing. But like that's not CrossFit in terms of like what's recommended to everybody, and even
yeah,
probably the same for those people at Cactus that were on that competitive team, right? It's like they're probably broken down because of the volume, because like it is very highly demanding if you're
yeah,
pushing it to that amount of training, right?
yeah,
You can only sustain that for a very short period of time before things just
100%.
start to fall apart.
And it's very trite to say it because everyone says that you have to listen to your body. I mean, I think so.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm 46 now. I started when I was 33. I guess I started kind of like officially an affiliate when I was 33. I feel healthier today than when I started. You know, I have some niggles and naggles. Occasionally, my back, will blow up if a workout's got, certain too much hinging or squatting or something in it. Occasionally I'll have a shoulder that will kind of bug me a little bit. But as far as, you know, I feel like I've done a pretty decent job of listening to my body. I know there's things I can't do. The biggest limiter to me, why I can't get better at a lot of stuff, is I just can't get my squat up. And yeah, you and I were talking
We
about
were talking
this.
about that earlier.
Yeah, yeah, and I've gone through seasons where it's like, okay, I really have to put some volume into my squatting. I got to move my back squat, my front squat up higher because I'm limiting my max, cleans and snatches and all that stuff because of, you know, I just don't have high enough max back squat. And so every effort I've ever taken to go down that path, I can just feel beating me up. My knees start aching, my back starts hurting worse, and all these things happen. And then I dial it back to kind of more like, what we do in the classroom, the class level stuff, and I feel good again. And so it's like I just haven't been able, I think maybe I'm just kind of structurally unable to move that needle, or at least I haven't figured it out yet.
I think it goes back a little bit, somewhat to the balance conversation, right? It's like the work that you would need to put in to do that. It's like, okay, where is that time and effort then coming from? elsewhere in your life? Like, are you gonna, take classes off to put in squat work? And do you want to do that? Or is it,
Yeah.
it's like there's a trade-off in there somewhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I used to work yoga in occasionally at Yin Yoga
Mm,
and from a place called Modern Yoga in Scottsdale. Man, I never felt better in my life, and I was doing yin once or twice a week.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, and together with CrossFit, it was the ultimate. But I just don't. I mean, I don't have time, so I have to choose one or the other, and I'm not going to go choose to stretch for 90 minutes over going to do CrossFit. So unfortunately, so maybe someday. When I moved to Arizona, I actually was in a period where I was kind of looking to dial back a little bit work-wise. So
Yeah.
I ultimately kind of had an envision of transitioning when I came down here, I was running sales for a company, running North American sales, which is why I was able to move away from our headquarters and live
Mm,
remotely. And, I was kind of thinking maybe I would, transition out of that into kind of consulting role where I just kind of help them and some sort of quasi retirement where I help on the sales front and, then I just could do what I want to do the rest of my life, including probably like train 3 hours a day or whatever. Unfortunately, I started heading down that path and then just my natural inclinations got the best of me and I just liked working too much. So instead of moving in that direction, which I kind of told my wife I was going to do, I actually went way off the rails in the other direction and cranked up my career. So why not?
how has staying in CrossFit helped that side of it out, right? Like, as your career, I mean, like we've been
Yeah.
talking about, right? Your career's continued to build up and increase and improve over time, but in terms of responsibility and things that you're, responsible for, and I'm sure probably the size of the team of people that you're, responsible for reporting up through you, right? How has staying in CrossFit, listening to your body, sustaining that over that period of time, how has that helped that front of your
Yeah.
life?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, I tell people this all the time. Like when I coach my team about things, I really push what I think is the importance of CrossFit or something like that to give you energy and stamina as a leader. I mean, the business world, especially ours, we have I guess if you're all located in one common site, it's less or common facility, it's less like this. But the businesses I've been part of have dozens of facilities all over the place. And if you're going to be kind of in leadership, it involves moving between them and spending time with people, and that takes time and that takes energy, and that causes a lot of early mornings and a lot of late nights to get there and blah blah blah. And if you aren't have some sort of like physical stamina, you simply can't. It'll wear you out. I mean, we thankfully the company I'm with now doesn't have European businesses, but we used to take these European trips and 1 weekers where we would every single day be traveling from on a plane from one site to the next. We'd be in England to Germany to Denmark to Italy to home, and we would do this regularly, and it was long, hard days. And those of us who were more like physically could handle the rigors of it, we'd go strong and we'd bring somebody along who wasn't used to that. They'd be begging by Wednesday to like send me home, let me stay, stop, I can't, and so it's like I definitely think there's an element of CrossFit, of just kind of general fitness that helps you plow through that. But I'm also a huge believer that CrossFit, the secret sauce of CrossFit is intensity, right? It's intensity, it's power, it's pushing things into a fixed, in the real world, you don't have as much time as you want to do things, right? So if you really want to win, if you're in battle with competition, if you're in battle with whatever, being able to have a time constraint and get as much done at a time constraint as possible is what the real world is. And that directly translates to CrossFit and CrossFit. And that's why I love CrossFit, but I don't think CrossFit's for everybody. And the people it's not for is if your thing is not intensity, if your thing is not ever increasing amounts of work being done in a time frame, or more load being moved or work being done, whatever you want to call it, I don't think you're gonna get the benefit out of CrossFit. I think you're better off going into mountainside and lifting weights and running on a treadmill for 30 minutes than to come do CrossFit and not push intensity. And I believe that's So, and that's my belief. And so I think the same thing in the work. So when my teams know, and we haven't always been successful. We have our own problems, but in general, uh, we're kind of out there kicking butt in the marketplace, and we lead with intensity. We lead with speed. I always tell them our teams are built for speed and intensity over efficiency. And so we are, I bring that exact same mentality into the workplace is, we are going to be faster than our competition. We're going to hit them harder. We're going to be first to market. We're going to be first to execute, first, and we're going to go fast. And we're going to shrink timelines and we're going to get stuff done. So I completely, and I don't know if anyone on my team will listen to this podcast. They probably won't. But if they would, they would laugh about this because they know all I have done is take business and turn it into a big CrossFit workout or a series of CrossFit workouts.
Basically, you're coming up with like a corporate version of Fran. You're like, all right, we've got this project coming up. Like, how can we shrink the timeline? How can we pull things forward? I'm sure
Yeah, exactly.
they'll probably be listening to this like, there's Brad again. There you go.
Yeah. So a little hint, if anybody wants to rise quickly in my organization, bring a ton of intensity to the job, act like, say the right buzzwords, and man, I'm loving you. Your career is going to skyrocket quick.
So do CrossFit is kind of underpinning to that. And if you want to come to CrossFit North Scottsdale, I guess most of them are probably in Wisconsin,
but I do have I'm a member of Adventure Awaits in Wausau, Wisconsin. Adventure Awaits CrossFit, which is another awesome CrossFit gym. Shout out to the Andy and Kathy, the owners there, awesome people. But so that's where I train when I'm back there. Yeah, so I'm always promoting CrossFit because I do think it's one of those things that what you learn in the gym translates into life in a lot of different ways.
I 100% believe that. Right. Like there's so many ways to take the lessons you learn in the, like, I mean, we were talking about it earlier with the gymnastics piece, like, learning a muscle up, not that you have to have a muscle up to do CrossFit, but it's whatever that next level up is. Right. You can boil that down to like, I remember talking to someone that, they walked through with a new person in an on-ramp and it was the first time they had done a full air squat, without support, like their own body weight to depth. And it's like that person now just walked out of the gym thinking, holy crap, what else am I capable of? Right. And now you take that energy and you're a force to be reckoned with. I don't think there aren't many other disciplines or forms of training that give you that same benefit on as consistent of a basis as CrossFit does, right? Like powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, you do, but there are such long cycles between when you can kind of unlock one of those new levels that it's hard to feel that every day. Like CrossFit, you can almost find that just about every day.
Yeah, well, 100%. The skill aspect of it. I mean, that's the thing that I think CrossFit brings to the table that I almost liken it to like golf because, people love golf and they get addicted to golf because there's always something to work on, right? You can always improve your swing. You can always, it's a sport where even as you get older, you can get better at it because technique and mastery of skill is probably more important than power in golf. And I think the same thing in CrossFit. It's like, yeah, I don't know how much longer I can keep getting stronger. I'm going to keep trying, but or keep, I don't know how much longer I can keep moving things like snatch and clean and jerk up because I don't know if I can, who knows, or if even I should, but guess what? I can still get better at CrossFit as it's defined by the open across the 10 disciplines because I can get better and crisper at how I move in gymnastics, about moving my body in space. I can get better at squatting. I can get better at my form. I can get better at pacing. I can get better at, all these different, there's 100 things to work on at any given time. And it's not a young man's, I'm not a believer that CrossFit's a young man's or a young woman's game. I think it's something for everybody because that whole skill mastery piece is not necessarily an age dependent thing.
100%. You're right. You can there's always some ways to refine it, right? There's something new to be, like there's just when you think you're starting to kind of figure some things out, then something else will come up and be like, oh crap, that was a hole. All right, time to work on that one. Right.
Yeah.
And it keeps it exciting, right?
Yeah.
Like, I guess it's perspective, right? Like to some people that they hear that and they're like, wow, that sounds unbelievably frustrating, right? To always have something to work on. But I'm sure like to you, and I know for me, it's like that's the exciting part of it, is that
Yeah.
there's always this variety of like, oh, I didn't even realize that was something that I needed to
Yeah.
kind of improve on. Cool, let's put some focus there, right? And then you can kind of keep laddering up over a really, really long period of
Yeah.
time. Do you have your level one?
I
I feel
don't
like
have
we
my
talked
level
about this
one.
recently.
I know
You don't? Okay.
I know I should totally go get my level one. And I had the opportunity with McHale a few weeks ago to go up to Flagstaff to get it. And I didn't want to take the time to do it. But no,
Yeah.
I don't have the level one.
Oh,
But
you would
you
love it.
know,
You would absolutely love it.
yeah,
I'm time and cost is a thing, right? I'm not
yeah,
ignoring that, right? Especially, but yeah, I think you would really, really appreciate it. I mean, just hearing you talk, I'm like, you know, people are probably hearing you and thinking, oh, does he have his level one? Is he a coach? Like, nope, you just probably researched it on your own. But yeah, that would
yeah.
be a really cool experience. I think you would really
I
appreciate it.
should. I've been absorbing all this kind of ideology for a lot of years, and and essentially buying into most of it. So
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's all right. I got one more question for you. And before we get to that, first of all, thank you for, sharing your story, kind of your, how you found it, how it's benefited you, all of the things that have built up through your story to where you are now. And I think hopefully, well, hopefully there's, like we were saying before, right? The business world, especially at the executive level, can be an unhealthy lifestyle. And hopefully someone will come across this that's like, oh, wait a second. No, it is possible to like continue to stay healthy while I build my career, while family's growing, all those things, right? Actually, it's funny you mentioned golf, and I've always kind of had this thought that, how there's like the old joke of like, hey, business meetings happen on golf courses and stuff, right? I
yeah.
always thought it would be kind of interesting to have like those business meetings would take people into a CrossFit workout and see like, all right, like then we could sit around, drink some water after everybody's done Fran or whatever, whatever benchmark workout, and then have the business meeting. Then
Oh,
you'd probably learn some things about people. That's for sure.
I would love that. In fact, it's really funny. You've been to my house before, and you saw where I have my gym.
Yeah.
Um, right? You saw, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
right next to my gym is my office, and I initially wanted to put my office in my gym. So I initially wanted to have that whole space be a gym, and then build a loft over one part of it where my office was, and all keep it all one space. And I wanted to basically have my gym in the office. And so when we would be having a call like this, I wanted to be able to look in the back and see a rig and some, bumper plates and some bars and all that kind of stuff. And my wife was like, no, that's 100% not happening. So no, I completely wanted that. Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I've often wondered, Marco, if there's a market out there for me to take what I think I've learned and used to, and kind of like balancing, business and fitness and family, and seeing if there's a market out there for people to like share that with them, train them, coach them, provide materials around that. I don't know. It's one of those things that I think about sometimes.
There's 100% something, right? Because if you think about, I mean, if you think about all the different, well, I mean, just put it this way, if you think about all the different companies that are out there, right, at whatever level of scale, level of team members, revenue levels, they all have someone at the top. And
Yeah.
you could probably kind of reasonably assume that the percentage of people that are at the top of those companies that are on the lower end of the health scale, kind of that, health continuum, is probably a high percentage of people that aren't living a very healthy lifestyle. Maybe that's improved over
Yeah.
time just because of knowledge and things like that, right? I'm sure previous generations it was a lot bigger percentage that were unhealthy. But
Yeah.
that market's still there, and you're a prime example, right? Just with your own story of, hey, I've incorporated fitness as a part of my life. For you it was CrossFit. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be CrossFit for people.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm biased. I think that would be
It should
best,
be.
but but it's like I've incorporated health and fitness as a part of my lifestyle, and here's all the ways that my life has continued to improve, right? Career wise, family wise, everything along those lines. So there's 100% a market for it. So you and me, maybe we can
I think maybe
we
we should
keep chatting
explore
about
that a little
that.
bit.
We can talk about that a little bit maybe for a part two
Yeah.
episode. So, but I think that there for sure is that, right? Like that's one of those. kind of rising tide lifts all boats types of scenarios, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, you might have, just even thinking about your own industry that you're in, right? There might be a competitor that you have that has a leader there, a CEO that's on the unhealthy side of the scale, right?
Yeah.
And if you were looking at it from a purely business competition side, it's like, well, that you're probably going to outlast that person, and from a business perspective, because you've got the health and the fitness to do that, right? A whole bunch of other things notwithstanding. But at the same time, like, in terms of just, if you zoom out big picture in terms of what helps the world, right? Not to get too super philosophical about it,
Yeah.
but if the leader of that competitor for you also becomes healthier, like, that culture that then filters down into that business too, right? You've got a lot of other people that report up to that leader that are then like, oh, I can progress in my career, and there's just a huge ripple effect that happens there, that makes so many things better from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Notwithstanding a huge cost to our business or any business is healthcare. I mean,
Ooh,
it's
yeah.
massive. And we try all sorts of things in business to incentivize people to use gyms. We give them a break on their memberships, or if they, in my former company, if you did all these different things, you could get a little bit of break on your healthcare and all that kind of stuff. And it just never really seems to work. I mean, at the end
Yeah.
of the day, and I think one of the things, Marco, that's probably frustrating to you as being very central to the fitness industry is you can't make people do something. You're you're either wired, in some ways, it's really hard to inspire somebody to be better who doesn't want to be better themselves. And that's, you know, I don't know. That's been my frustration as I try to kind of work with people and inspire people. And I see people with so much potential to have a better life if they would just make these decisions, and they just simply don't want to. They don't prioritize it. And I don't know what you can do about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the fundamental question right there, right? Is how do you kind of show someone that, like, no, there's a better option over here,
Yeah.
right? And because I wonder if a part of it is that, like, things are going well enough for those people up
Yeah.
until that point that they don't see a reason to change, right? It's like that unfortunate kind of rock bottom type of, you
Yeah.
know,
It is.
I don't know if you want to call it a paradox or whatever you want to call it, right? It's like, until something really kind of crashes and burns for someone, that they're like, "Oh boy, I gotta go do something about this," right? And it's like, how do you know, show someone the door to, like, help themselves
Yeah.
out before they get to that point, so that way they don't have to rebuild all the way from there. It's like, no, you can fend that off. You don't have to bottom out
Yeah.
to make things better.
Yeah. I mean, the world would be such a better place if that was easier in all facets.
Yep.
The fact that humans have to hit a rock bottom to change is a massive flaw of the species, or that, it really is.
Oh my goodness. I know. Okay. All right. We got some ideas around there. I'm sure we can figure something out. But ironically enough, that's kind of the whole um reason behind me starting this, right? It was like, so that way when people have that thought or they see CrossFit, right? Because, like, you know, you started seeing the games documentaries and the things on YouTube, right? Like, for you were like, holy crap. And same for me. I was like, damn, that's really impressive. I want to see what's going on over there. But there's a ton of people that see that stuff and they're like, wait a second, that's CrossFit. I don't want any part of that. Right. And so this is, ideally it's trying to lower the barrier of entry of, like, no, no, no. Like, yes, that's what's possible from doing CrossFit,
Yeah.
but you're not forced into that. And it's actually way more welcoming and way more accessible
Yeah.
for anybody, regardless of
Yeah.
fitness level. Right. And so that way,
Yeah.
when people either get to that point or start to get to that point or feel like they're getting to that point, then it's like, hey, there's a door over here. You can come check this out too, because, people like you are in here every day doing this thing.
It's so frustrating that so many people I talk to about doing CrossFit, the first thing, you know exactly what I'm going to say. The first thing they say is, I need to get in shape first and then I'll come. And it's like, no, you've heard that, right?
Yeah,
Everybody says
yeah.
it.
I have multiple people that just popped in my head right there as you were saying it. I'm like,
Yeah. It's like, it doesn't work like that. You come in here and you get in shape. It is literally something anybody can do. It is infinitely scalable. It's infinitely variable. And, as long as you have a modicum of humility, which, if you're starting a new sport or a new activity or a new anything, you better have humility or you're going to really not enjoy anything. So if you can come in and have a degree of humility, uh, realizing you're not going to be the best person day one, which who is, right? It's for anyone.
Yeah. I was just having that conversation with somebody recently about like, especially we're, recording this relatively soon after the new year, right? So many people getting into new things, trying new things out, and then they hit one slip up or one speed bump and say, well then, yeah, I knew this wasn't for me, right? And then kind of give up on the whole thing. And then, fast forward 11 and a half months from now, they'll be trying it again, right? And it's this thought of like, hey, when was the last time you tried something new and you knew exactly what you were doing right away? Like that's, nobody's ever had that. And if you did, it probably just wasn't something very hard, right?
Exactly.
That actually had any real benefit to it. So, there's going to be a learning curve to it. I actually, man, I've been meaning to post this for a little bit. It's such a silly thing, but you'll see where I go with this. My son, he's 3 years old, right? And he's got got a series of books for Christmas. The Pete the Cat. I don't know if you've ever had Pete the Cat books for your kids or anything like that.
Yeah.
You heard of Pete the Cat? Okay, cool. So there's one of the books where he's helping one of his classmates out that isn't very good with math, right? And he's like, hey, like, let's go, we can do our math homework together. And the friend says something like, oh, I hate math. And Pete says to him, it's like, you don't hate math. You just haven't learned to love it yet. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, these kids' books, they simplify it so much. And so much of it is that, right? It's like, it's not that, if you're trying out, whether it's CrossFit or any new fitness thing, you don't hate it. You just haven't learned to love it yet because you haven't been in it long enough to start to really see the benefit, right?
Yeah.
It's like, give yourself time. You will get there, but you got to stick with it. Yeah. Oh, thanks for coming to my TED Talk rant over about Pete the Cat.
I love it. That guy better give you a little money for, bringing his Pete the Cat into the, your podcast.
Yeah, right. There's I'll wait to hear on the cease and desist from Pete the Cat Incorporated or whatever. But okay, so all right, I got, and the final question that I had for you, which kind of goes along with that topic, right? I want you to think about what do you think, like the young up and coming person in their career, right? That's and you probably, as I'm saying this, right, you might see a little bit of yourself in here, right? The young person, they're maybe a couple of years out of college, they really see a strong line to and are really motivated and want to build up their career and kind of going into that unbalanced route, right? And they kind of hear about CrossFit, they hear this conversation and they're like, I don't know, like that doesn't seem like it's for me, like I'm not quite sure what what I want to do there. Imagine you had a couple minutes with someone like that. Maybe it is the younger version of you. Maybe it's someone that you see on your team right now, right? Yeah. And they ask you about CrossFit, and you get a couple minutes to sit down with them and explain to them how it could benefit them or why they should try it in the first place. What's that piece of advice that you're giving?
Well, I think I'm going to go back to some of the things I said earlier. If you're in a hard charge like that, you're going to need to blow off steam. Nobody can hard charge without an outlet. You build up enough pressure in something, there's got to be an outlet. So you need to find an outlet. CrossFit's a great and healthy outlet, like you mentioned earlier. It's a healthy way to build an outlet instead of drinking or drugs or whatever, any other negative vice you could create as an outlet. So you need an outlet. Number two, you think you can just work hard. You need physical stamina. If you're really going to chase that thing, physical stamina is required. If you're going to be moving up in the business world and doing things at a high level, you're going to have to be moving around a lot, and you're going to be traveling, and you're going to be this, that, and the other. And that is not only is that taxing, it's probably the most unhealthy lifestyle you can imagine. And so you're going to need a moral compass. You're going to need a health moral compass if you're living that. When that means, when you're in those airports, you don't go eat the garbage that they're trying to sell you in those airports. You have a plan and you're disciplined. When you show up at that town that you're going to be in, before you get there, look up where your hotel is, look up where the CrossFit gyms are around there, and before you even leave, book a drop-in for a class, and hold yourself accountable to doing that, and make sure you do that in every town you go to, and make a plan for your eating too, because when you show up, this is all travel related, right? But when you show up at that, Hilton Garden Inn or whatever, and you look across the street and it's TGI Fridays and it's 9 o'clock at night, Guess what sounds pretty good? Nachos. And so, and then if you don't have a plan, you're going to eat nachos at TGI Fridays, which is, it's okay to eat nachos sometime, right? But if this is your lifestyle, it's going to kill you. So, do the research of where healthy places to live are in that town. And the other piece is you can't do all this stuff alone. So if you want to make a decision, you want to have that stamina and you don't want to let this lifestyle kill you or make you super unhealthy, you need a tribe of people with you. And that's my issue, why I would tell them to do CrossFit instead of going to a Globo gym, because you need people that are holding you accountable. You need people that when you show up and you've been gone for 5 days or 2 weeks or whatever, they're asking where, even better, they're not even waiting for that. They're calling you and wondering where you're at, right? You need this tribe. So I think there's a lot of things, if you're going to choose that lifestyle, that you got to be prepared for. I mean, there's the family aspect, there's the spiritual aspect. We're not talking about that today. We're talking about the health and fitness aspect of it. It's a leg of the stool. And if you don't take care of it, it's going to hold you back, and worse than holding you back in your career, because there's worse problems being held back in your career, honestly. Worse than that is it could kill you, or it'll shorten your life, or it'll shorten the quality of your life, or lower the quality of your life. So I think it's something you have to address. And I think CrossFit's the best thing, because guess what? It's not as easy to go you can find a CrossFit gym everywhere you go. Every town I travel to, I can find a CrossFit gym essentially. And man, I've dropped in to hundreds of CrossFit gyms probably. I don't know. I never counted them. But I've dropped into a lot of CrossFit gyms, and it's a great way to hold yourself accountable to what you're doing. And guess what? Those guys you're traveling with, they might start doing that too. And next thing you know, you got the best case scenario. You got a couple people you're working with, they're doing the same thing as you, and you're having a lot of fun doing it. And that's the other piece I would say. At the end of the day, if you're not having fun, you shouldn't probably do. I mean, you're not going to keep doing it, right? And CrossFit is just a ton of fun. And so to me, it's not like some tool that, I've had to put in my arsenal to make sure that I'm sane. It's the funnest part of my day, right? So it's a ton of fun. Is that a good answer?
It's a beautiful answer. It's a beautiful answer. I love it. I love it. I couldn't agree more with all this. But I mean, even that last part too, right? Like it's so much fun. I don't know how to, like, I want people to experience it, and I hope they hear it and understand that over the course of these stories. There's a part of it that you got to experience for yourself, but man, it is so much fun to just be in there. You're talking smack, right? You get to see your friends, everybody's laughing, you're joking around, and you're going to work hard too, right? Like that doesn't make it easy.
Yeah.
But you're going to have a good time. And then afterwards, everybody's in a pool of sweat, right? Like, everybody's in a pool of sweat, and you're just like, oh, that was really freaking hard. But then you fist bump and you're like, all right, I'll see you tomorrow.
Love it.
Yeah. So no, that was a great answer. Great answer. So Brad, no, seriously, thank you. Thank you for the time. Thank you for, sharing your story and sharing everything here. I really appreciate it. And, yeah, we're going to have to keep talking about that idea, because there's something there. And
I think
there's something there. We just got to figure out what that something is.
Yeah.
So, no, thank you again. Appreciate it. And thanks for being on the show.
All right. Thanks, Marco. We'll see you, man.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing with a friend. To get notified of future episodes, please follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you can continue to hear these stories. For more behind-the-scenes content of everyday CrossFitters, follow on YouTube and Instagram at Silverback Media. Until next time, this has been the Silverback Media Podcast.